Hi, my name is Ellie Brocklehurst, and with me today is my beautiful friend and co-host Beck Nadalo, and together we are full-timers. As two working mums with small children and hubbies in tow, we've come to the realisation that the best way to define us and a lot of people out there is that we're full-time. Full-time mums, full-time wives, full-time employees, friends and daughters. And with all that full-time comes with it a lot of weight, obstacles and constraints, but also a lot of great opportunities. We've been searching for somewhere to validate our feelings about what it takes to be a woman in today's world. So rather than continue that search, we thought, let's start it. Welcome to the Full-Timers Club.
Hi everyone, I'm Beck
I'm Ellie.
and this is the Full-Timers Club. Welcome back to another episode. We have launched by now and it's been very exciting.
It has been.
We uploaded 3 episodes this morning,
Yep.
which is very cool. And it's great to see a few little downloads here and there and some listeners and some followers on Instagram. So
I won't lie, I have been pulling the drop-down option quite a bit, like all day. And it doesn't upload very quickly because people tell me they've listened and I'm like, cool, I want to see how many.
Okay.
And it says 0, but then all of a sudden it jumped to 25. So that was pretty cool.
it's awesome. Very exciting. Hey, so one of the things that you and I have talked a lot about is I think people at work who've had a really kind of big influence on us. Big influence, but through little things that they've done. And I think this is a really interesting topic that we wanted to talk about, of like little moments, little interactions, little things that have had a big impact on us and had big lessons for us. And so I wanted to start off by asking you, I'm going to put you in the hot seat.
Yeah.
What are some of the big lessons that you've learned maybe over the last couple of years that you think you have been contributed by people and their small interactions or the small things that they would have done for you?
So, okay. I have always been one of those people who would follow their leader into battle. Like I've always, I have said this, I have said this to death. I want to work for people who I support no matter kind of what. I mean, obviously they have to be good people, and so I've had a couple of leaders who I have almost suffered underneath because they're not that kind of person. In that I've had a couple of female leaders who were quite challenging to work with, and so then as a result I was like, I think I'm gonna go work for men because clearly I think I work better with men. And then I've had a couple of male leaders who have kind of been the same, and so I've just kind of realized that it's a particular type of leader that I work well with. And that is someone who gives me the space to grow. So doesn't suffocate me, doesn't micromanage me, doesn't kind of hover to make sure I'm doing a good job. They kind of almost have the trust in my ability and my experience to let me kind of figure it out for myself. And that is one of the best lessons I've ever learned, not only about myself, but that's how I think I also manage is just giving people the space in the room to figure it out for themselves. Now that doesn't always work well. And I have also learned that when I manage people, there are particular people that does suit people like me. But sometimes that doesn't come so naturally, and sometimes people do need to be managed. So I've also learned on the flip side that I've had to pivot a lot of my managerial skills to actually, work with people like that. But I think it's funny because it doesn't seem intuitive that if you give people space, then they'll lean into it. But I've had a couple of leaders, we've already talked about Annette, she's one of them, Krishnan, who wasn't necessarily a leader for me, but he was like a colleague. But he was also a mentor. So he was the kind of person that also then gave me the space to he was teaching me a lot. He was kind of showing me the ropes a bit more. So I think the big takeaway for me is that whilst I might grow and develop in a particular way, that does not suit everyone.
But I think that's probably one of the best lessons in leadership is that you need to tailor the way you approach different people to what suits them or, the best way to manage them. In your case, it's to give you the space. Other people might be to be more directive, but I think great leaders will figure that out and they'll know, what, I need to slightly tailor my approach to this person and vice versa.
That's such a good point, that great leaders will pivot. Like I think that's the thing that maybe I learned as well now that I think about it, is those kind of leaders that don't, that kind of only do one certain style is never going to suit kind of everyone. Whereas if you've got someone who alters their style,
Yeah.
I remember Annette we used to have this colleague of ours who was an incredibly smart man, but quite challenging to manage just because personality-wise he was quite different to us. I know you're smiling because you know who I'm talking about. And he was like when I first met him, I was like, I cannot break down this wall. Like he is. I feel like I could charm most people. He was uncharmable.
Yeah, except by Annette.
And she nailed it. Like she absolutely, like to the point of when he found out she was leaving, he was devastated. And this is a guy who like just emotion-wise did not show anything openly. And I remember thinking like that is impressive that you were able to not only manage a group of us, which we were all incredibly dynamic, loud, very opinionated people, and then somebody who was the complete opposite. And she just, I mean, it was just so impressive to watch.
I mean, look, I want to have an entire episode just with Annette because I think we've mentioned her name a lot.
I think like 6 times.
The thing that strikes me with her that I've had to learn, you know love languages?
Yes, we could have a whole episode on love languages. Yeah.
It's almost like you need to know your or like the people who you're either working with or they're working for you. You need to know their version of love language. I know who you're talking about, and I think
so. We did that.
Oh, I'm sure you did. And I'm sure she went away and read it and knew that person respected or responded to time.
Yeah.
Time invested with them. And she did exactly that. She knows with other people like you, it's about autonomy and empowerment. And then she knows with Krishna, and it's about positive reinforcement. And it's like knowing what drives individual people. And I think that's I think it's a big thing that she did. But I guess she might think it's little, but that had a really big impact on me and how I think about leading people now is knowing what floats their boat and what they respond to, and then making sure that I'm giving that to them to get the best out of them. One thing that an old boss of mine used to do in BBDO New York, Aussie, who like is just amazing, he used to do this one thing that I loved, which was called Notes from the Dugout. So Notes from the Dugout was an email that he would send to the agency every single Friday afternoon. And it was like, so you know what a dugout is, right? It's a baseball reference. Yeah. And it was like a wrap up of the week. What we did, whose birthday it was, any big news. Even when I had left BBDO New York, when I got engaged, he'd like put a picture of me and said like one of our old employees got engaged. But it was like a way of keeping people connected to the agency and to each other. And that was a little thing that had a massive impact on me. And what was that? So that's
8 years?
13 years ago.
What?
13 years ago.
Okay.
And in this job, well, actually, in those 13 years, I always thought to myself, if I am ever a managing director of an agency or anywhere, I'm going to send out a wrap up of the week. And for the last year and a bit at Iris, I've now sent probably 380 FLDs, Amazing. Which is my Friday lowdown.
So good.
And it's all about sharing my week. Sometimes it's like what happened in the week. Sometimes there's a theme to the week. It might be about resilience or teamwork or whatever. But it's a way of keeping people connected because I remember how it used to make me feel and how much I looked forward to the Friday afternoon email. So that was like a little thing that's had a massive impact on me.
I think that also, and I'm thinking, I don't think I've ever really received such frequent communications like that.
Yeah.
But I'm sitting here thinking if I did, it would really reinforce my love of going to battle for my boss. It's creating a connection. It's creating an affinity with that person and an appreciation of the effort they're going to make you feel better. Like it's such an awesome quality.
Yeah. I don't know how many people read it. I hope they do. I used to get a lot of notes back saying thank you so much. I feel like they've petered off a little bit, but let's see. I might in today's I've drafted mine for today. At the very end I'll write PS, is anyone actually reading this, and see how many responses I get.
You just have like a click button that just says yes or no.
Yeah, totally.
Do you remember at Wunderman Thompson we used to do that WTF? Yeah. Which was Annette's monthly newsletter.
Yeah.
And it was, I'm trying to remember, obviously it was meant to assume and Annette was, she'll openly admit this, I think she was a bit of a potty mouth occasionally. But the idea was it was like work, like things and fun or something like that. So it was a play on words. But it was such a successful newsletter. It got something like 56 or 58% open rate, which for a newsletter is incredibly high because usually it's like 20, 30.
Yeah.
But it's because it's exactly what you just said, which is we just made it fun and engaging, and it, you know, wasn't about like the numbers, or it wasn't about like, you know, hard KPIs. It was just, as you said, like a bit of a lowdown. I love that. I think that's a great one.
Yeah, that was one of my things. And I think, you know, so when I took this job, given it was my first MD role, I reached out to about 6 bosses that I've had in the past that I've really respected, and asked to just have like 30 to 60 minutes of their time to pick their brain. And I think I've talked about this before. I just said to them, what were some of the biggest wins you had, biggest losses, things you've learned, things you would say to someone moving forward? And there was so much, but Ozzy again was just full of, oh God, he's such an amazing man, but it's full of so much wisdom. So he talked about that email was a proof point to a bigger thing around communication, and just over communicate. You can never communicate too much, but you can communicate too little.
Yeah.
And the more communication, the less ambiguity, the more transparency, the more people feel safe, the more they feel like they trust this place.
Yeah.
Like all the things that can come, there's only good things that can come from over communicating with people. And that was one of his ways, and that's something that I've taken, and I've really, like, I've made probably a lot of mistakes, but I think the one thing I've tried really hard to do is maintain over communication and transparency with everything, so people know why decisions are being made. And then the other thing that he talked a lot about is how you show up when times are hard. So he managed the agency, I forget where he was, I think it might have been OMG. He managed the entire thing during COVID, which, as we all know, was just like the worst time ever.
Yeah.
Although actually probably for a media agency, not so bad, because media spend was through the roof, because everyone was at home watching TV or spending money online. But, you know, he was like, how you show up and how you manage yourself during those times is the most important thing, because people are looking to you to set the tone. People are looking to you to know how to think and feel, what to do. And so how you show up as a leader is the biggest thing. Again,
another example of when Annette was just such a good leader in that. As I said, we were all quite big personalities, and most of the team were extroverts. So when we were all of a sudden locked down in our houses, she knew that connection had to be made, and so we did daily stand-ups every day for like, they lasted like a year or two.
That's amazing.
Well past COVID. And it was just her way of knowing that we just needed just a little chat, like a little conversation, just to kind of like, and it started every day like that. And it was just an awesome way. I mean, half the time everyone was like, BAU. But I've always just remembered that was something that she knew we needed, that we didn't know we needed.
Yeah, maintaining that touch point.
But I want to go back to what you just said about you reaching out to people, because I think for anyone that's listening that is looking to become a leader or is about to embark on that journey, I think that is so awesome that you do that. And you've always done that.
Which part?
The part of you reaching out to people to learn something.
Oh, right.
You've done that forever. Ever since I've known you, you've always just been very good at tapping into your network to figure out how you can do something better, or how you can take some of their learnings. Like I feel like you're constantly on. You are. You just did it this week with
who did I do that with?
With the Motherload report.
Oh, yes. Yes, that's a whole other topic.
There's a whole other topic. We will get into that. But I think that's such a good learning that, you know, you're always on a path of learning. You're always trying to improve yourself. You're always trying to make sure that you show up for your agency and your people. And I think that goes such a long way. And I hope that your people that work for you know that that's what you do, because I think that really inspires confidence.
But I think, you know, people don't do it enough. Like, so you're right. Like I reached out to Kerry McKibben, who runs Mischief, who was one of the founders, and recently said, like, can I just have 30 minutes of your time to pick your brain? And
do you know her?
No.
Isn't that amazing? You don't know her and you just message her on LinkedIn.
But people don't do it enough.
I know.
No one will ever say no to you asking for some of their time to pick their brain. Like, it'd be different.
Do you know what? I have.
Have you?
Yeah. Oh. And you just made me realise how bad I am for that.
You have what?
I've had
people reach out.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting. But this comes back to a topic we talked about during redundancies, like pay it forward.
Yeah.
Because one day you'll reach out to someone.
Yeah.
And if everyone had the mentality of what we used to say at Meta, generosity of spirit, just being open with knowledge, communication, and like sharing everything. As soon as someone says like, can I have some of your time? I'm always like, even if I'm busy, I'll try, because I hope that one day it'll be, and I know because I've experienced it, it'll be reciprocated to me.
Do you know why I don't do it?
Why?
Because I feel like I don't have anything to share.
Oh, Ellie.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I think, and I've talked to you about this before, and I think, again, this is why I really appreciate Annette and you and Christian. I have had, and I probably will always have, severe imposter syndrome. Severe. To the point where it's almost debilitating. I almost think if someone ever asked me like what I do, I freeze up.
Really? Why?
I don't
You're
know.
so amazing. And you're intelligent. Like, I'm not just saying you're amazing because you're my friend. Like, you're bloody smart and you're good at what you do.
I don't know. I just think and it's funny because it's not just redundancy. That put me down another low path.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, and I know, and there's so many people that feel this, and I've talked to a lot of people about it, and it's pretty natural. I just think it's in my nature to just second guess what I'm doing, and why would it be of value, and and I am really trying to own it. I've said this to you before, like exactly why I dressed, exactly why I bought the outfits, to dress a certain way at my new job, was so that I could feel really confident in the role that I had been given.
Yeah, fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it.
Except that you have made it.
Yeah, possibly. But that is, it is something I want to get more confident in. But that is why I haven't done it, because I in my mind I'm like, sure, I can talk to you, but I don't think I can give you any wisdom. But maybe that's because I've never done it. Maybe I need to do it, and maybe the juices will just flow.
I mean, I feel like that's one of the things that you get from interviewing, because you're forced to talk about yourself. Like, I remember going through the period of after Meta and interviewing, and I'd walk out of a meeting and I'd be like, I actually do know what I'm talking about. Like, it's a bit kind of self-affirming.
But maybe because my background's PR, right? And we're always behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like I've never been one to be super vocal about what I do.
Yeah.
Publicly.
Yeah.
And actually this podcast is I think going a long way to help me pull myself out of that shell and stop being kind of maybe shy in front of the camera, which is so weird because I'm just not a shy person.
Yeah. But I think something you talk about isn't something that's bespoke to you or unique to you, in that women often feel like, I've got nothing valuable to say, so like, why would anyone say? And even with this podcast, I have thought, like, you know,
who's going to listen?
Totally, like, we know who's going to listen. Our parents, our cousins, our brothers and sisters.
I mean, our husbands don't listen. But
yeah, I haven't sent it to Andrew. But there is a part of me that's like, but who am I to have an opinion, and why would anyone care? But then at the same time, I'm like, but I kind of feel like through all of my experiences, I feel like I've got things that I want to share with people. And I don't know, I feel like a lot of women do actually have incredible experiences and observations that people would kill to hear about, but because they think that no one cares, they're like, just don't say it.
It goes back to that whole stat. I remember that stat, it was ages ago, about when women and men go for the same job. Women need like 100% assurance that they can do the job, and men need less than that. Yeah. I think it goes back to that. I think it's that, you know, you and I have talked about this podcast about making sure that what we say is like perfect, or like we just really want to land at certain points. Like half the time the best things that you and I have said is when it's been completely, you know, off the cuff, and it's just happened quite naturally. So I think it's just getting confident in the fact that you do know what you're talking about. And again, I just think that goes back to having leaders or managers or people around you that give you that space to have those conversations. I know that in the agency world, we've always talked about, you know, giving room to the junior level guys to have a voice in the room. Yeah. You know, I always think that is something that I haven't experienced for many, many years, but have you done something like that in your agency where you're trying to like advocate for certain people or certain levels to make sure that they're like in the room or talking in the room?
I mean, we're quite small and we're a pretty flat organisation. So I like to think that everyone has a voice. And, you know, I caught up this morning with our new ECD, who's just freaking amazing. And one of the things I said is, I know that sometimes when I'm in the room, people might defer to me because it's like, okay, well, we'll defer to the most senior person to make the decision. Hence why I purposely won't join a lot of meetings, because I'm like, no, they don't need me. They are completely fine. Like, I've got an amazing team.
Multiplier.
Totally. Yeah. Or if I'm in the meeting, as hard as I find it, I will just be quiet or say, like, what do you think we should do? And take the lead from someone. So I think it's just about giving those people a voice, not dominating everything, which I know I'm really bad at. So I'm trying really hard not to do. But I think as well, the whole imposter syndrome thing, and why I do also reach out to so many people to get their perspectives on different situations and how they've dealt with things or whatever, is you will never have all of the answers, but you will only learn them, and you'll build those answers by talking to people who have got diverse experiences from you. And I feel like who I am today as a leader, as a mum, as like a person, is a combination and culmination of many different things that I've learnt from people. Like, and my whole intent of speaking to those 6 people before I took this job wasn't to follow the path of one person, but to go, oh, I love what Ozzy said, and what Jane said was really nice, and what Krishan said was really good, and I liked what Annette said. And I take a little bit of everything to then form my perspective and version of who I'm going to be as an MD. And I feel like more people should do that. Like there's so much you can get. Instead of having to live the experience yourself, you can at least still get it through another person. And I would encourage anyone to do the same thing, whether it's around motherhood, whether it's about leadership, anything. Like, go and seek out, just listen to people. It's so amazing what you can learn rather than having to like find it firsthand.
I think that's why I'm thinking about all those mentorship programs we've had around, across the years. How few people actually sign up to those, like the younger team members. And now I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, man, we should have just made it. We should almost just get like a buddy system. Yeah, you just get one.
Yeah,
because you're right. It's not in our nature just to kind of like ping people on LinkedIn and be like, hey, I'm just like wanting to like have a little quick coffee. But I think that's definitely something that you've gained a lot from. Just those little interactions, I think has definitely probably changed you in a big way.
And just don't be afraid to be like, hi, I'm so-and-so. Can I have 30 minutes of your time to pick your brain?
So good.
People, I've never had one person say, no, you can't.
Has there ever been, I want to say, has there ever been like a negative experience or something that you've taken and gone like complete opposite and been like, I just make sure I never do that as a leader? Is there anything that like, any situation where you feel like it's just goes against what you want to be?
All the time, but I consider those the more positive experiences because that to me teaches you more.
That's very interesting.
Like, and it's funny when people are like, oh, that person was such a bad leader, or like that was such a bad job or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, but I bet you learnt more about all the things you don't want to do or be than when you're in a positive experience. Like there's so much to take out of those things. I read something the other day though that I really loved. It was something Bill Bernbach said. Which was, a conviction isn't a conviction until it costs you money.
A principle.
You sent it to me. There you go. I sent it to you. Sorry, it's not a conviction. A principle isn't a principle until it costs you money, which I really loved because I feel like, and these is probably some of the things that I've learned in the last couple of years is, like what are your principles, and particularly being at Meta and stuff where, going through a redundancy and everything afterwards, like, what are my principles and where's my line? Where will I draw that line? What will get me over that line and what won't? Like, what will I compromise on?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point. I think don't be afraid that the negative experiences will tarnish it. In fact, how do you grow and learn from that?
Totally. I think sometimes the more negative experience, the more you actually learn from it. So in that case, nothing's a negative experience. They're all positive because they're all learning opportunities.
As long as you turn it into one.
Yeah, exactly. Anything negative you should come out of. And I literally had someone recently in my team who made a mistake and it was tearing her up, absolutely tearing her up. And she came to me one day crying and she was like, can I just talk to you? And she was like, I need to apologize for this mistake. And I was like, you know what? You will never make this mistake again. You will learn so much from this. So in that instance, this wasn't a negative thing. Grand scheme of things, it wasn't that big a deal. But you would have learned so much from this. And as long as you can go, okay, what did I learn from it and how do I make sure it doesn't happen again? It wasn't a negative experience.
No. You've just reminded me of one of the most a perfect example of a really little thing that has massively impacted me. When I got my very first job in PR in Australia, I had written an email. So we were a very small team, and I'd written an email to a client and I said, like, I'm really pleased to say that I have secured you this coverage.
Yeah.
And my manager at the time, who was only a couple of years above me, so not as experienced, not massively experienced herself, came to me and said, do you know how it looks when you work in a team and you say I?
Oh, that's so interesting.
And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And she's like, well, we are a team.
Yeah.
And whenever we speak to clients, there's never, we don't kind of identify individual contribution. It's all we. To this day, literally any email I ever wrote, I literally wrote one this morning where I started typing I and removed it and said we.
I love it because you don't work in a team, so they would have been like, no, you mean Ellie.
Yeah, it's so true. But I think that's such a good example of where it's like something really small. That was when I was like 20 years old. To this day, in everything I do, I'm always like, it is all about the team and it is not about you as the individual.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go. A little thing that happened, 20 years ago?
Hey.
20? No.
I'm not that old.
15 years ago? That's had a big impact on you.
Massive.
I mean, look, this was an episode that was we've gone around and about.
Yeah. But it's important.
We've talked about imposter syndrome. We talked about little things and big lessons. Annette, again.
Reaching out on LinkedIn.
Reaching out to people.
Network.
Yeah.
All those things. There's lots of learnings.
And I guess, look, the key thing for me is just always be open to learning. Like, just be curious.
Yeah.
Never stop. Like, never have a fixed
sponge.
mindset. Yeah, be a sponge.
Yeah.
Always think about what you can learn from others.
And seek out those that you think you're going to learn from, either good or bad.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. That's another episode of the Full Timers Club. I'm Beck.
I'm Ellie. We'll see you next time.